very much for everybody who's joining us this morning, either on Zoom, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. My name is Joe Russo, and I'm the CEO of the Palm Beach Tech Association. And this is one of our South Florida Tech Community Coffees. It's a weekly gathering at 8 a.m. in the morning for updates, best practices, and a way to connect with other local business leaders on what they're doing, especially during this unprecedented time. So this event was something we actually started during COVID-19 as a way to bring together some really unique content and share some very unique stories. And we've been able to host this pretty much weekly since March, thanks to our awesome team of Nikki, Monica, Allie, Madison, Rich. So, big shout out to them for always bringing us together here. With that, we have a really exciting call for me today, because we have a number of people I deeply respect who are joining us and are here to share some of their insights and stories about what they do, which is economic development. And we're obviously extremely concerned about the technology industry as a team, as a community, and where our tech community goes moving forward. So we have the CEOs of the 3 South Florida economic development organizations. Their jobs are to lead the business community forward in each respective county. So in Palm Beach, Broward, Miami-Dade, and work with the government leaders, work with the business leaders, and really work with anybody that they can in various partnerships like CareerSource, where we have Michael Corbett joining us today, who's also on the Palm Beach Tech Board, to better the business environment in their communities. So with that, I would love to introduce our 3 guests here today. First of all, we have Kelly Smallridge, the CEO of the Business Development Board of Palm Beach County. She has been with the organization for 32 years. She is the longest tenured economic development president in the state of Florida, with a solid track record of facilitating some of the largest job creation projects in Palm Beach County. And for those that don't know her, she is a rock star, and she has brought some really amazing businesses and people to Palm Beach County. Also want to introduce Bob Swindell, who's the CEO of the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance. He was named the CEO in November 2009. He was previously the Senior Vice President of Business Development since 2003, and has worked on a number of local, national, and international relocations to Broward County. And again, just a very amazing man who's got a lot of track record building his community. And then, of course, last but not least, Michael Finney, who's the CEO of Miami-Dade Beacon Council. He, since taking over the role just a couple years ago, has championed the county's efforts to market Miami-Dade County as a world-class business destination, grow local companies, shape the county's economic future, and a lot of that, of course, around technology, working with stakeholders like CareerSource and the Chamber of Commerce to really focus on the growing and dynamic economy that they have there. So this is really special. These are 3 amazing leaders, and I really got to give a huge thanks to them for joining us, and to our team for putting it together. So with that, I would love just to start in order. We go from Kelly, Bob, and then Michael to briefly introduce themselves and what their organizations do. And then we're gonna have some conversation mixed in here that I'll lead and moderate. And for anybody that has any questions along the way, you can, of course, put those in the chat. So Kelly, if we want to start with you, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, Joe. And thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I appreciate all of your hard work also in our community. So the Business Development Board is about a 35-year-old organization. And as Joe mentioned, it is the official economic development agency that has the great pleasure of working with so many partners that are on this call, and also our Board of County Commissioners. Our mission is to recruit, retain, and expand companies to Palm Beach County in targeted industry clusters such as aviation, financial services, communications technology, life science, manufacturing, distribution, and logistics. Like so many of you, my partners, Bob Swindell and Mike Finney, also have the similar recruitment, retention, and expansion strategies. Fortunately, Because our economy is so diverse and because we focused on those areas, I think Palm Beach County will recover. It will be a process, but many of those industries have not been hit as hard as our hospitality, retail, and tourism industries. We focus a lot on the Northeast, Connecticut, New York, the Boston area. And because of COVID, I'm seeing a lot of opportunities also in the California area. So high quality jobs, bringing those jobs to Palm Beach County, but more importantly, expanding and retaining those companies that are in our backyard, that are in those industries. Michael Corbett, I see Mike on the phone, great partner of this organization. And many of our chambers of commerce and economic council are also great partners. So thank you again, Joe.
Of course, thank you very much. Bob, you're up next, my friend.
Thank you, Joe, and my thanks to you and Nikki for pulling this together this morning. It's good to see so many bright, happy faces this early on a Tuesday, and it's great to get people together again. I think, you know, at the end of the day, we're social beings, and interaction is important to us. Working remotely is a good technique, but I think at the end of the day, cohesiveness is part of what makes strong teams. The only thing I'd add to what Kelly talked about is, you know, another primary role that we have is building the business brands of our communities, and combine the strength of the South Florida business brand is what we spend a lot of time working on. We're fortunate that Zimmerman Advertising has, for years, has donated their services to us for an annual marketing plan that we use to identify potential areas of the country and companies, and building that Broward County, Greater Fort Lauderdale business brand. It really goes back to what we've talked about a lot, and that's diversification. What we're going through right now, to Kelly's point, clearly has hit our leisure services industries dramatically. When I talk to counterparts up in Central Florida, though, we think we have it bad here. They've really been hit hard. But, you know, technology has been a strong area for us to focus on. Many of you at the Tech Gateway, David Coddington on my team has been leading that effort. It's a regional effort for, again, building the reputation and the tech prowess of South Florida, and that we're maturing as a part of the country. I think the coattails from the Amazon HQ2 process, a lot of folks were surprised that, you know, South Florida would be in the top 20 in the country to host a potential second headquarters for a company like Amazon. That really gave us a lot of notoriety, and people were, you know, we've gotten project leads from that. Just the fact that we made that list with Amazon, but more importantly, we backed it up with good data. And companies have followed suit, saying, well, you know, we really hadn't thought of South Florida as a tech destination, but you know, going through that process and doing more research. And that's, I think, really what prompted people, and that's what our marketing is really about, is to get people at least to look at the product and learn a little bit more about South Florida. And I can't say enough about the working relationship I have with Kelly and Mike, and they're just amazing colleagues to have in this industry, in this business that we do together. You know, Kelly was part of a middle school intern program, and that's how she's locked in 32 years at the BDB. But Joe, thanks again for the opportunity this morning.
Of course. Thank you again for joining. And Michael from the Beacon Council, I believe, is joined in now. If you'd like to give a brief introduction. There you go, Michael. You got your audio working there?
My audio is working.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, so if you want to give a brief introduction of yourself and the Beacon Council. I think we might have lost Michael for a moment there. Yeah. All right. So while he's back logging on here, we'll get started with the question and answers, and you know, when he's able to get back set up, we'll you know, allow him a moment to talk about Beacon Council. But we have a list of questions, as I mentioned, and anybody who'd like to chime in with some questions of their own is more than welcome to put that on chat. So first off, a question for Michael. Are you there?
Yeah, I think I'm back. I
Okay.
apologize. I'm having a few connection problems this morning. And so I switched devices. So hopefully this is more stable.
Perfect.
But yeah, Beacon Council, like the BDB and the Fort Lauderdale Alliance, our work is very similar, very focused on, obviously the region and all that the region has to offer, but more importantly, down to the community level, we're focused on, assisting existing businesses of all types. Obviously, we have a significant focus on tech-based companies and trying to ensure that we continue to grow our community from its tech base, but also the typical large established companies. I think Bob referenced the HQ2 project with Amazon. That was a good example of our ability to work together, and we anticipate more of that in the coming months and years. So I'll stop there. And
yeah, well, thank you very much for hopping on here. Apologize about the technical difficulties, of course, for a tech conversation that's bound to happen. So first question for everybody that's on the call is more of a comparable question in terms of how does South Florida's market compare with other regions and other metropolitan areas around the country? Obviously, we have some benefits here. There are cons, I'm sure, compared to some of the other regions, but put that in perspective, I guess, for some of us of what are the pros and cons comparably to regions around the country.
So I'll chime in here. I think South Florida is one of the most robust regions in the state of Florida and in the United States. We're very fortunate to have access to a population of about 6.5 million and more than half that speak multiple languages connected by our Bright Line. The best quality of life, and of course we're biased, but we believe it's the best quality of life in one of the most competitive economic development regions. As I mentioned earlier, we're fortunate to have a very diversified economic base with everything from aviation, aerospace to financial services to technology. Unlike many other parts of the state of Florida and parts of the United States, I think we will rebound and recover quicker because of the diversity of our area. So I'll stop there, but while these are very trying times, I think it's the diversity of our economic base and the fact that we are still very attractive to people and companies throughout the United States that this area will recover quicker. I know my counterparts will echo the same sentiments that even though we're among some challenging times, I think this has opened up doors to us, economic opportunities that we didn't otherwise have. But one of the things that we're facing right now is an onslaught of inquiries coming from the Northeast, from companies and people who feel that they'd rather get out of those dense populations in New York, Boston, Connecticut, Chicago, and California. And so it's really causing a flow of inquiries coming into South Florida, CEOs that had knowledge of our area, that had second homes in our area, that are saying we want to get out of those cities and we want to come to Florida. We know when your schools are opening, and that's leading to an increase in private school enrollment as well, which turns into leads for our 3 economic development boards.
I'll follow up a little bit with what Kelly said, in that I think all 3 of our organizations are seeing more interest from the Northeast and denser urban areas. When you look at the destination of South Florida, as we've matured as a region and as a community, cultural amenities, all the things that you'd want. One of the benefits we have, it's a challenge right now, but because of the large service economy and the number of people that visit South Florida, we have more restaurants that are top quality than really would probably justify our individual populations in our communities. And that's because of the visitor population that we have. And those types of amenities, along with great cultural amenities, we've all got performing arts centers in each of the 3 counties. I know the Broward Performing Arts Center is one of the top 10 in the country. They do great programs with our school system as well. So those are the amenities that folks are looking for. And then, we never lose sight of the fact that we have a phenomenal tax climate here. And as communities look to pay for this COVID disaster we've all been going through, I think it's just going to get worse rather for our friends up in the Northeast and markets like Chicago, where they already had budget issues before this. So our tax climate here, attracts high net worth individuals. And, Kelly's been working for a long time on, private hedge funds, private equity firms, those individuals, high wage jobs that could work from almost anywhere. And we have phenomenal connectivity. In 2 hours, you can be on a JetBlue flight into Manhattan. If you got to be in New York for a day or two every week, even it's not really an imposition. So I think we'll get back and we'll see that connectivity. I'm confident that we've got a lot of innovative folks out there, and that we'll have a cure to this virus. At some point, I think rapid testing is going to be another innovation that's going to happen soon. I've talked to friends in those industries recently, and I think the rapid testing is going to probably become available sooner than the vaccine. But with rapid testing, you think about, before you board a flight, you go to Performing Arts Center, those types of innovations will help us get through this pandemic. But, this virus, we're constantly learning about it. It'll be interesting to see what happens next year. Does it shift as a virus, and is it like whack-a-mole with the vaccine, or will one vaccine be tweaked each year, very much like the flu vaccine? I mean, that's stuff we'll have to learn. But I'm confident that the South Florida as a desirable destination is just going to increase in those markets. And people may not talk openly about the density issue, but I know it is going to be a decision driver moving forward, and will be part of the conversation.
Yeah, I would add, right now is a difficult time to draw distinction between South Florida and the rest of the United States. For that matter, I think we all see what's happening with COVID-19, and the state of Florida, South Florida, certainly being significantly impacted right now. But I think as we get beyond this crisis that we're in, those same core assets that we had, that Bob and Kelly have very eloquently articulated, those attractive resources are still there. And they will be attractive because for the same reasons that they were before. And I think our big challenge is making sure that we don't miss this opportunity to begin to transition our economies to things that in some cases are not necessarily as dependent on hospitality and tourism as we have been, so that many of our consumer-facing businesses don't get so dramatically impacted as they've been this time around. But it's attractive. It's a great place to visit. The sunshine's not going to change. The beaches are not going to change. The attractive areas like Las Olas and other Wynwood, you name it, these are real tourist attractions. Our ability to draw major events to this South Florida region is something that's simply not going to change. And a lot of it has to do with our geography. And fortunately, we have the right business climate, the tax climate. Issues like that will continue to position us very favorably. We, like Broward and Palm Beach, see an awful lot of opportunity from the Northeast, but we see a lot of international opportunity as well, as business owners in all over Latin America, lots of places in Europe, are seeing the advantages of finding alternate locations here in South Florida. And we expect that to continue, but we obviously have to get beyond this crisis that we're in right now to really enjoy the fruits of that opportunity.
Yeah, and with that, we've talked a lot about recovery and what does that look like for our economy. And I really want to dive into that very briefly. Obviously, the environment has affected a lot of our tourism industry, a lot of our hospitality industry, and has really kind of forced some businesses and companies to change how they do business. And the question is that long term, right? So, really, what does recovery look like in each of your respective communities? Do things go back to where they were? Do they pivot a little bit? Is it going to take some time? Is it going to be be rapid. Just generally, where do you see the recovery kind of going? And obviously timelines are kind of all up in the air right now for a lot of reasons, but just curious where your insights might draw some thought on where the recovery looks like.
Joe, as already has been mentioned, the recovery for our tourism, our retail, and our restaurant industry are going to be a little longer and a little tougher. For the remainder of our businesses, and I'll speak for Palm Beach County, all of them, with the exception of those three, were pretty much deemed essential. And I think it is a pivot. It is going to be a change. Companies will most likely not go back to the new normal. I've spoken with manufacturing, logistics, distribution, IT companies, and they're operating completely differently today than they were just 90 days ago. And yet we're not able to determine or hear from them if they'll ever go back to the way it was pre-COVID. That's completely up in the air right now with no vaccine. Our county administration has worked very hard to make sure that as many businesses as possible stay open, but I think that the longer road to recovery is exactly, as I said, among those three industries, which we all have to help. All of us have launched buy local campaigns, but our attorneys and accountants are seeing heightened activity dealing with their clients. Our real estate investment community is seeing increased activity. Our manufacturing industry is having to establish new protocols, which costs money and takes time. So I would say that, for a while, we're going to operate in the new normal. And it's not going to be a switch that we just flip and we go back to doing business the way it was pre-COVID. So in Palm Beach County, in Broward, and in Miami-Dade, each one of our organizations, we actually all bonded together to create websites to help guide our driving industries and how to open safely and protocols and where to get help. And that's been our main effort on behalf of the three of us to assist our local companies in getting back to recovery. But restaurant, retail, and tourism, we're still not in phase 2 right now. And it's probably a 4-phase process. And with the recent spike, there's a chance that we could even go backwards. So very hard to tell when we'll go into a phase 2 and how long that road to recovery will be.
Yeah, I would jump in and say that we will clearly have a different approach to doing business, this new normal that we're dealing with. I just think about my own daily activities. I'm on Zoom, I'm on GoToMeeting, I'm on Microsoft Teams, Instagram, WebEx, Uber Conference, and the list goes on in terms of just the tools that are now being used on an absolutely everyday essential basis that were not being used before. And those tools are being used to transact business. For us, as an example, our core business development activity is remaining constant. In fact, we've just finished the third quarter of our fiscal year, and we have actually completed the major KPIs that we have for the entire year. And as we went into this crisis, we fully expected that our business development activity would fall right off. And we had many really nice projects in the pipeline. And as Kelly pointed out, some of the sectors that are continuing to drive business activity, we're seeing it. And while our pipeline has slowed down a little bit, it's not at a point where we're feeling desperate about next year, because our pipeline is more predictive of what's going to happen next year than what's happening immediately. And we're seeing a fair amount of activity. It is interesting activity. It is high value, knowledge intensive jobs, the right kinds of jobs for our community. And for the most part, it is non-hospitality and tourism, because those jobs tend to be more dependent on visitors coming here than a major trade and logistics facility like, say, an Amazon or someone else, where a piece of property was just authorized to be sold for a major distribution center in South Florida, or in South Miami-Dade. So we're continuing to see activity, but it's a new approach to developing it. You know, most of our meetings and most of our engagement is via one of the technologies that I mentioned earlier, Zoom, GoToMeetings, or whatever. And what we're finding is that we can be extremely efficient in our meetings. We actually can get more done. Unfortunately, it makes it difficult to keep up on emails, but you know, we can certainly get more done because we have the ability to do things back to back and take out all the lag time that was there. And so as we've pivoted, businesses are pivoting also. And those who pivot well, I think will have unique opportunities to continue to grow and prosper here in South Florida.
One of the things I would add to what Mike and Kelly have said is, you know, sort of the nature of what we do when it comes to project management was really remote driven, you know, 120 days ago. So if you think about it, you know, if you're evaluating a location, a lot of it's data driven. You know, you can look at sites, you can, you know, get pricing information, you can view the demographics. Nothing replaces an in-person visit, but all the preliminary work, you know, you do on, you know, online. For those projects that have a site location consultant, you know, they work remotely anyway. Most of them work from their homes, you know, way before COVID happened. So for them, it's just business as usual. So we're learning to adapt, but we are busy. Our business development team is busy managing projects now. So it, you know, people assume that things have evaporated, but you know, the reality is, you know, a lot of the aspects of what we do when it comes to projects is still operating the same way. The only other thing I'd mentioned is, you know, there will be an impact when we talk a lot about supply chain. You know, the nature of South Florida, even our technology companies that are here, if they have a hardware product that tends to be manufactured overseas, we're just not, you know, we don't have the scale and the sites in Broward for large scale manufacturing. And that's impacted some of our technology companies in just getting product. I was talking to one local CEO. We actually had lunch last week. It was so nice to go out and have lunch with somebody and sit across the table and have a conversation. But, you know, they fortunately had a shipment that left just before COVID hit. So, you know, it landed here and they had product, but, you know, their concern now is like, you know, how do they pivot? What other sources can they tap into? So they've got some redundancy when it comes to providing component parts for their product. So I think, you know, we're going to be, you know, looking at those opportunities, and it may provide, you know, for South Florida, some international direct investment opportunities where other countries will want a foothold in South Florida because of the technology companies that are here. So I'm looking at it as an opportunity. The research park at FAU just opened Global Ventures, which is a soft landing facility for international companies. I think that's part of, we look at infrastructure and resources for startups in South Florida, especially international companies. The Global Ventures startup is a great example of what we're trying to do in South Florida to encourage that international interest in South Florida, and is a really a launch place to North America.
Yeah, and that business incubation too, I'm sure will continue to be very prominent as we move forward. You know, with that too, that's actually a pretty good segue into our next question around technology and innovation. Obviously, that's what has brought us here all on Zoom together this morning. And curious where you see technology and innovation playing a role in our recovery in the next couple of years. Is it at a really big part of our economy, or maybe we have some homemade you know, resources, especially maybe in the biotech sector or in the technology sector, that have helped maybe not just South Florida, but the world kind of recover. So just generally, you know, where do you see technology and innovation playing a role in our economic recovery here in the next couple of years?
Well, you look at companies, you know, there's a startup in Broward called CarePredict, and Satish, this is his, I think, his third startup. Very successful entrepreneur. His technology is all based on sensors and a wristband, primarily for seniors. But we were talking the other day, and he has deeper penetration in congregate living facilities than I realized. And their whole thing is managing metadata. So, you know, they have all this information now, and predictive analytics is what's really important to them. So, what things happen in advance of a senior having a falling incident. So that's part of what their sensors and the wristbands have been able to help with. But if you think about the metadata, they realized pretty quickly that contract tracing was going to be really important, especially for congregate living facilities. And with their technology, they realized, well, we've got the data. Now we just have to reorganize it. But if a senior, is test positive for the virus, in a matter of minutes, they can say, okay, these are all the people that had interactions with that senior in the last 3 or 4 days. So again, when you look at contact tracing, which I think is going to be part of when you look at the overall solution between rapid testing, if there's a cure for the virus, but also contract tracing is going to be an important aspect of how we beat this virus. So when you look at innovation, companies like CarePredict are perfect examples of, how do you backtrack and provide the information when people have contact with someone who tests positive. So the quicker we can ascertain that information and inform people, I think is going to be, again, part of how we defeat this virus long term.
I'd also add that, technology and innovation is going to be the core of moving us forward in terms of jobs. And those who have embraced technology and innovation are going to be the ones that are going to recover quicker. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the restaurant and retail operations that have done the best, those are the ones that have embraced technology, brought it into their operations, and really utilized that. We have high hopes in Palm Beach County that we will soon be the home, or hopefully one day be the home, of a vaccine. We are home to 2 of the world's largest research and development institutes, as you all know, Scripps and Max Planck. And Scripps specifically is working very hard on a vaccine. I would also add that the inquiries that we are receiving in South Florida and in Palm Beach County are technology. A lot of them are technology and innovation companies. Every single week or every 3 to 4 days, we receive a call from a manufacturing operation or an entrepreneur that has a new product primarily related to COVID that they want to launch and manufacture in our area. So as I mentioned earlier, it's opened up doors for us, but whether it's protective gear or contract tracing or something related to diseases and epidemics, it's fascinating to see that they are interested in South Florida. And with our research institutes and our hospitals and biotech companies, we're able to create some good synergies. But Joe, with all of the work that you've done in Palm Beach County and the region in technology, I think that's the core. And because companies are looking at this area and they come here and they realize that our technology infrastructure is very strong, also makes us a very competitive location.
And I would echo what Bob and Kelly said. We are seeing a fair number of business opportunities in technology sectors, particularly within biotech and life sciences. And a lot of that is being driven by what we're seeing right now. But most importantly, we think that it's the ability to adapt technology to whatever your current business is that will likely be the biggest transformation that we see. In other words, if the restaurant industry doesn't figure out how to use technology as a tool to ensure their survival, they will likely not be successful. And you can apply that to virtually every industry that's out there. Who knows what the innovations are? But when we have crises in this country, it typically leads to a whole new area of innovation that many of us could only dream about. If you think back to 9/11, probably the biggest disaster that we've had in recent memory. And what came from that is a lot of the artificial intelligence, the virtual reality, the recognition, key recognition tools and other things, cybersecurity. I mean, the list goes on in terms of the innovations that came from that. We are likely to see similar types of innovation here. And what we have to make sure that we're doing is that we are, in fact, positioning our community with those core resources that it takes to be successful, making sure that entrepreneurs are supported very well, that venture capital and angel investing capacity is here and present. That our universities are really focused on building pipelines that support the innovations and really the opportunities of the future. And then I think collaborations beyond our immediate area. The University of Florida is probably the most significant research university in the state of Florida. And I just think it's really important that we build collaborative relationships with the entire network of universities that we have so that we don't miss opportunities for commercialization of incredible innovations that are likely to come from faculty, staff, and students.
We only have a couple more minutes here, so if anyone does have any questions, feel free to put those in the chat. We do have a question from David, and he asked if the pandemic has driven any more congruency between the business leaders between our three counties, Palm Beach, Broward, and Miami-Dade, on any level.
Kelly?
We actually have a lot of overlap between our board and business leadership. And, certainly we see opportunities for it. We've had a number of strategic discussions. Bob Kelly and I meet every month, and those meetings always lead to some actionable thing that one of us is doing that the others can consider. And then we've also extended that to our governance groups. And so there is, I think, a significant level of connectedness. And it really wasn't driven by this crisis as much as it was a desire on our part to maximize the potential of South Florida. And literally, my first month in Florida was June of 17. And in August of 2017, the three of us had our first three-way team meeting. And we have continued that kind of effort going forward. And of course, we bring our business leadership and governance groups into those discussions as well.
I would add on the policy side, I've felt all along that the successful recovery and exit out of the COVID virus pandemic that we're stuck with is continuity across the three counties from a policy perspective. We did really well early on, and that the counties were working together. And I think for consumers and the residents, that consistency from one county to the next is important, so that the rules of restaurants, the rules for wearing a mask, just the basics are consistent from one county to the next. I think we had a little bit of a disruption, but I'm happy to see today that there's a lot more connectivity between the three counties. So our county administrators and our county mayors are staying in contact more closely. And while our communities, one of the things I love about South Florida is we work well as a region, especially on the economic development side, but each of our three counties have unique personalities. So there will be differences, but I think that continuity is really important when you're dealing with something like the COVID virus. And I'm happy to see that we're returning to more of that consistency. So if you travel from Delray to downtown Fort Lauderdale for dinner, you're going to experience very much the same experience that you would experience in either county. I think Miami-Dade is going through this process right now and trying to navigate. But the changing nature of the virus, we anticipated a spike when things reopened. But to be quite honest, I had no expectation it would become as bad from a contagion perspective, and just a number of new positive cases that we've seen. So I think we've had some wins and misses, but I would on the policy side, I'd say we're in the column for more wins so far.
And we're going to have one or two more questions here before we head out. But next one, mainly around silver linings. Is there anything that we can look at here with the positive lens that COVID has kind of brought to us? Like, is there a silver lining somewhere in our business environment or somewhere in our economy that we can take from all of this? And I know that might be a tough question, but with any inkling or anything comes to mind.
I think from our perspective, if you had asked me 4 months ago if we would be embracing a more robust remote working environment at the Alliance, I'm a little old fashioned. And again, as I said at the beginning of this conversation, I'm a firm believer in the importance of proximity and cohesiveness. But I am impressed with my team at the Alliance. I've come into the office almost every day since the start of the pandemic. I'm very fortunate that I was able to do that. And for me, it's just, it's easier for me to work from my office than from home. But my team members really embrace working from home, and they've made it work for them. I am a much bigger, I'm much more receptive to the idea of how we distribute work and our relationship to where we work than I was 4 months ago. So if there's any silver lining, it's that I see the benefits from remote working, and I see the benefits for our region when we look at competing with other parts of the country. I mean, if you could work remotely and be in a, in a great environment like South Florida with all the amenities that we have, in addition to great weather and a great quality of life, we're a pretty attractive option. And I think that more and more companies are evaluating, do we need, a grandiose campus if, some of the big IT companies in Silicon Valley are telling their folks don't plan to come back to work until January. And even in January, we're going to reconsider. And so maybe all we need is, to build our corporate culture. When you first join the company, there is a place you come to on a regular basis. But once that culture is sort of embedded, and they inject remote working as part of the daily routine that people have, I see more of that happening. And I think South Florida is positioned really to take advantage of what those opportunities will present as people look at more flexible work environments.
And Joe, I would agree with Bob. I think it's pretty simple. The silver lining is that Florida, and South Florida specifically, is still an extremely attractive business location. And we are very fortunate that even among the increase in cases and South Florida being a hotbed, it's shocking how much interest is still out there from businesses that want to come to South Florida and make this area their permanent home. So unlike other areas of the United States, our 3 economic development boards are doing very well. Initially, 90 days, 120 days ago, I thought we would see a significant decrease. And as you've heard this morning, there really hasn't been a decrease. If anything, there's been a slight increase from people who want to get out of states that may not be as attractive. So we're lucky that this is an area where diversified businesses paying high quality jobs with technology as the fabric of all of their industries want to move to South Florida.
I'd probably go slightly negative on this question and say it's tough to really see a silver lining right now. And certainly Bob and Kelly make some really good points that are spot on. But the reality is, I think we have to do some different things in this state if we expect to take advantage of the opportunities that Bob and Kelly highlighted. If we continue doing business as usual, we lag behind. Look at what's happened to us most recently, and it's self-inflicted. And so I'm really of the opinion that we have to rethink what we are doing and what we intend to do to maintain our status as that really attractive business location. What are we doing with our incredible open spaces that we have, be it beaches and parks and other venues that we have? What are we going to do to ensure that the appeal of those, in fact, converts into economic opportunity for us as a region? And if we don't do different things, we will lose more than we gain. So I think the opportunity is there, but we have to be prepared as a state and as a region to make the tough decisions that will allow us to take advantage of it all.
Awesome. And we only have a couple minutes left here. So with that, I just want to welcome any closing thoughts to Kelly, Bob, or Michael on anything to look forward to, especially in the technology and innovation industry here in the next year or so, and anything that you might be looking forward to for our South Florida region as well.
So one of the opportunities that I see and that I'm really excited about is that in Miami-Dade, the county just hired a new International Trade Consortium Director, a guy named Jonathan Ward. And Jonathan, he brings with him an incredible wealth of experience and know-how in international trade, having worked as a foreign service officer, having worked for Select USA, and most recently in Brazil, but literally all over the world. And this guy brings an incredible depth of experience that I think will serve us well as our businesses start to pivot and to look to more opportunities to export goods and services, et cetera. And so I'm excited about the potential that our community and our region has to really support existing businesses as they look to extend and to pivot their customer base beyond whatever it was presently. And a lot of that opportunity, I think, will be international. The US is still the largest producer of goods and services in the world. And if we can get more of our companies focused on taking advantage of these international markets, I think it's a huge opportunity for us. And so it's a small thing on the surface, but I think it's big in the total scheme of things as our businesses look to grow and prosper. So that's just one of a few things that I think are really exciting right now.
And Joe, in Palm Beach County, I think what's really exciting is that we have a solid pipeline of prospects and companies that we hope to announce by September 30th, which is the end of our fiscal year. And one of these prospects happens to be in the most blighted parts of Palm Beach County, which is the Belglade, South Bay, Pahokee area, and another in the northwestern part. And we're excited because each one of those companies brings well over 200 jobs to the area, good paying salaries, and our partner Career Sources working with us to fill those jobs. So while we went from 3% to 14% unemployment, our focus right now is making sure those 14% get good jobs and that we're able to retrain them for some of the new jobs of the new economy. And each of those will be built to suits, which will lead to additional construction jobs.
And I would just add, Joe, thank you for putting this, morning conversation together. I think what Palm Beach Tech is doing and other tech initiatives in South Florida are doing to build the technology brand for South Florida is critically important. I think, that is, what will be a long-term driver for diversification of this area, and just really reinforcing to folks that there's, great quality of life here so we can attract talent. I think when you talk to companies like CarePredict that, data analytics is a big part of their business. We need to encourage our universities to have more programs in areas like data analytics that will attract, talent, but more importantly, attract companies and allow folks to potentially work in a remote environment. But I think technology and the opportunities that industry offers South Florida is going to be a big part of our success moving forward. You may have heard that Nova Southeast University is opening a center of innovation to incubate companies and to create direct ties between startups and university. Another area that we see great potential opportunities are in spatial computing. So while companies like Magic Leap are going through a significant transition, that's sort of that's what happens with technology businesses. You go down a path that's not right, you've got to pivot. I mean, that's just part and parcel. And, I remind our policymakers, if you want to attract technology companies, you got to embrace the fact that they could be acquired. They could have to pivot. They may have to shed technology and reposition themselves. And that's just the nature of technology businesses. So, don't look at it as a win or a failure. It's evolving. And I think that's where new technologies like spatial computing could really provide a great groundwork for South Florida. And if we're seen as, ground zero for spatial computing, I think there's some real advantages to South Florida as we build our technology brand.
Yeah, and thank you again so much for everyone's leadership here, Bob, Kelly, and Michael, on not just, of course, technology, but just making sure that we have a prosperous economy in South Florida. What I'm passionate about as a nerd who grew up here in South Florida is technology, but there is so much more that goes into all of this. So I want to thank you for all that you've done for our community and for the people who've lived here and grown up here and built their homes here. And of course, for those who are our next generation who might not even be here yet because of the groundwork that you all have been laying. We have a really amazing place to live, work, and play. And, I'm looking forward to see what the next generation of our tech industry is really like here in South Florida. So with that, I did want to also give a note. We do have a career expo tomorrow. So if anybody is looking for a job, knows anybody looking for a job, virtual career expo, you can find out more at our website at palmbeachtech.org. Huge thanks to CareerSource and Emerge Americas, and a number of other partners and sponsors who made that possible. Last time we held that event, we actually had 900 job applications put through, which is really exciting to see that we could help at least connect some dots during this time. So again, shout out to our guests for today, and thank you very much for everyone who's joined on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Zoom. Hope everyone has a really great, fantastic day and an awesome rest of their week.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Joe.
all.
Thanks, Nikki.
Thank you.